History is not written in moments of peace. It is written when fear overtakes reason, when ambition outweighs humanity, and when small decisions create consequences that no one can control.
At the beginning of the 20th century, the world believed it was entering an age of progress. Technology was advancing rapidly. Railways connected cities, factories powered economies, and empires stretched across continents. Many believed that modern civilization had become too advanced for large-scale war. But beneath this confidence, powerful tensions were building.
Europe was dominated by vast empires. The German Empire had risen as an industrial and military power. Austria-Hungary ruled over many ethnic groups across Central and Eastern Europe. The Ottoman Empire still controlled large parts of the Middle East and Southeast Europe. Russia extended across Eastern Europe and Asia, while Britain and France ruled global empires through their colonies. These powers competed constantly for influence, territory, and prestige. Nationalism was one of the most powerful forces shaping this era. People no longer identified only with kings and empires. They began to identify with language, culture, and shared history. While nationalism united some nations, it threatened multi-ethnic empires. Groups living under foreign rule demanded independence, and governments struggled to maintain control.
At the same time, Europe experienced intense militarization. Nations expanded their armies and navies, believing strength was the only way to survive. Germany and Britain competed in a naval arms race. France and Germany remained bitter rivals after earlier conflicts. Military leaders developed war plans that relied on speed and surprise, leaving little room for diplomacy once mobilization began.
Alliances divided Europe into opposing camps. Germany allied with Austria-Hungary, later joined by the Ottoman Empire. Britain, France, and Russia formed their own alliance. These agreements were meant to provide security, but they also created a dangerous chain reaction. A conflict involving one nation could quickly draw in many others. Nowhere were these tensions more dangerous than in the Balkans. This region was home to many ethnic and religious groups, each with its own ambitions. Austria-Hungary controlled territories filled with people who did not want to be ruled by Vienna. Serbia, supported by Russia, hoped to unite Slavic peoples and expand its influence. Political violence and secret nationalist groups flourished, making the Balkans known as the powder keg of Europe. In June 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, visited the city of Sarajevo. His visit was meant to show imperial authority, but it instead provided an opportunity for nationalist conspirators. As his motorcade passed through the streets, a young assassin stepped forward and fired. The Archduke and his wife were killed instantly. This single act triggered a crisis that leaders failed to contain. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia and issued an ultimatum designed to be rejected. When Serbia refused to accept every demand, Austria-Hungary declared war. Russia mobilized its forces to support Serbia. Germany responded by declaring war on Russia and France. When German troops marched through Belgium, Britain entered the conflict. Within weeks, Europe was at war. Millions of men were called to serve. Trains carried soldiers to the front lines as crowds cheered, believing the war would be short. Few understood what awaited them. On the Western Front, armies dug trenches stretching hundreds of miles. These trenches became the defining symbol of the war. Trench warfare was brutal and exhausting. Soldiers lived surrounded by mud, water, and filth. Disease spread easily, and rats fed on the remains of the dead. Attacks often began with massive artillery bombardments, followed by infantry advancing across open ground under machine gun fire. Casualties were enormous, while territorial gains were minimal. New weapons made the war even more deadly. Machine guns could kill hundreds in minutes. Poison gas caused slow, agonizing deaths and permanent injuries. Tanks were introduced to break the stalemate, while airplanes transformed reconnaissance and combat. Warfare had become industrialized, killing on a scale never seen before. Life for soldiers was marked by constant fear. They waited for orders, listened to explosions day and night, and watched friends die beside them. Letters from home were treasured, offering brief comfort in a world defined by danger. Many soldiers suffered psychological trauma, though it was rarely understood at the time. The war quickly spread beyond Europe. Battles were fought in Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. Colonial troops were recruited from across the British and French empires and sent to fight in distant lands. Naval warfare disrupted global trade, while submarine attacks threatened civilian shipping. At home, civilians were deeply affected. Governments took control of industries, food supplies, and information. Rationing became common. Propaganda filled newspapers and posters encouraging sacrifice and loyalty. Women entered factories and workplaces in unprecedented numbers, reshaping society forever. As the war dragged on, exhaustion set in. Russia, weakened by military losses and internal unrest, collapsed into revolution. The Russian monarchy fell, and a new government eventually withdrew from the war. The United States later entered the conflict, tipping the balance in favor of the Allies. In 1918, fresh American troops and renewed offensives finally broke the stalemate. Germany, facing internal collapse and military defeat, sought an armistice. Fighting ended in November 1918, bringing 4 years of unprecedented destruction to a close. The aftermath of the war reshaped the world. The German Empire, Austro-Hungarian Empire, Ottoman Empire, and Russian Empire all collapsed. New nations were created, but borders were often drawn without regard for ethnic realities, planting seeds of future conflict. The Treaty of Versailles punished Germany harshly, creating resentment that would later fuel another global war. The human cost was staggering. More than 16 million people were dead. Millions more were wounded, displaced, or psychologically scarred. Entire regions were devastated. Families mourned lost generations, and societies struggled to rebuild. World War I was supposed to end war forever. Instead, it revealed how destructive modern conflict could be. It showed what happens when diplomacy fails, when nationalism turns violent, and when human life becomes secondary to power. Its lessons remain painfully relevant. The war stands as a warning, reminding humanity that progress without wisdom can lead not to peace, but to catastrophe.